2005 NFL MVP. How's it going, Shaun? How are you enjoying New Orleans?
It's great to be here for Super Bowl. I mean, it's always fun. You're starting to see everybody start to roll in, so it's going to be a great week.
Yeah, Shaun was an MVP back when a running back could win MVP.
We had a shot.
Right. What do you like? Saquon is obviously, we're going to have NFL honors tomorrow night.
Yeah.
We're taping this on a Wednesday. What do you think of Saquon's chances? And do you think if he doesn't win, because some people are thinking it's going to be Lamar or Josh Allen, do you think we will see a running back become MVP again, or is that era just passed in the NFL?
I hope that this is like the final running back to get it. I don't think he's going to win, but I feel like he should.
Right.
And I feel like after that, they're going to be like, what are we doing? Like, especially if the Eagles pull this thing off. They're going to be like, what are we doing? Like, great running back, great team, controls the game, great defense. This is old, we say old school. It's 2000. It's 2000 football. Right. So hopefully, I feel like he's going to be the last great one not to get it. And then it'll roll back up to us again.
Okay. Well, maybe he can win Super Bowl MVP, which would be a huge honor. I think one thing about Saquon's game and Derrick Henry as well, one of the other great running backs.
My nephew.
Exactly. There you go. Is that they get better in a way as the game goes on. It feels like they wear down the defense. Was that something tangible that you could feel when you were on the field?
Oh, for sure. There is a rhythm. I don't know if the other team is like getting worn down, but there's a rhythm that you and your offensive line get to where you're still playing this game of angles, leverage, where all of a sudden the defense is never on balance enough to stop you in what you do, and every great running back just wants to have an opportunity to be one-on-one and then have a lot of air behind it. So the Eagles have done a fabulous job of that, getting Saquon one-on-one, and then he's fast enough to make big runs.
He's had an incredible season. It helps when you have an offensive line like the Eagles was right. Hopefully Saquon's taking care of them after the year as well. Here's my question on the other side of the ball. I think everyone sort of knows, like, Saquon's awesome. The Eagles need to run, and they need to establish it to beat the Chiefs. Do you think the Chiefs, whose running game is not as strong, can the Chiefs win this Super Bowl if they don't have a strong running game against that tough Philadelphia front?
I think Patrick Mahomes is so talented. People don't realize, like, in the bigger games, there was always enough running to throw it off. You know what I mean? So you look up, and there's some of those for the Eagles' way of playing, some of those easy first downs you were just not even paying attention to because you're going to see Patrick in that wild arm do something. But they've always ran the ball just enough in the right moment to make something happen, so that they're going to have to still get a couple of rushing first downs. In other words, the Eagles, they'll play in the Eagles' hand. The Eagles got a great defense.
Yep, they do. And Kareem Hunt's not a huge story in this matchup, but quietly having a huge bounce-back season. Is there anyone in the league who you see who runs in your image, or someone that reminds you of yourself when you were playing?
No, not the way I did it. But there's still just so much talent. I feel like everybody's getting a little bit better. Like I said, there was definitely a season where the guys that were going to be like that 220 kind of range, they are staying bulk, but they're playing linebacker. You know what I mean? And so sometimes you see like the best linebackers or those guys are playing special teams. Those would have been the running backs, but they started playing linebacker in college. You know what I mean? Because they were playing. The running back has gotten a little bit smaller, and now you're seeing what Saquon and Derrick are doing. So you'll see football come back to a more dominant running game, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
In 2004 and 2005, no one had more total touchdowns than Shaun Alexander. In addition to being a superstar for the Seattle Seahawks, you're also a fantasy superstar. I had you on many of my teams back in the day. Thank you very much, by the way.
Yes, sir.
How often does fantasy football, when fans come up and see you and they talk to you and everything like that, how often does fantasy football come up? Have you ever tried it since you've stopped playing? Do you have any family members that play it?
My sons, they play fantasy. My oldest one really loves it. He's a freshman in freshman high school right now, so he's loving it. He talks about his guys and, hey, Dad, I was playing this, and they say like your numbers were that good. They weren't even alive when I was playing, and so that's a lot of fun. I think that us being tucked in Seattle, what Seattle is now known for, so from I think they only had maybe like 4 division wins in their 25 years before I got there, and then us going 5 playoff years in a row, 4 division wins, going to the Super Bowl, and then I retired. Then they win the Super Bowl with Russ and Bobby Wagner, who's still playing great, by the way. It changed it, but on the national scene, I think fantasy football brought tons of attention to me. I would go to New York, and they'd be like, "You're on my team." I'd be like, no, I'm a Seattle. They're like, oh, no, fantasy football. It's like, oh, okay. So I never got into playing it myself, but I still get that what you just said. You're on my team. You won me a championship, so it feels good.
Does your son come to you for scouting? Dad, I'm thinking about drafting this guy.
He surely does.
Okay.
He surely does. Hey, what do you think about this quarterback? Will this guy do this or this running back? And is it worth that? Or, hey, what do you think? Dad, I know you know Kittle. Like, so is he going to have a big year? I'm like, are you allowed to ask me about these questions? I feel like you're going on the inside trade.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, give me one player you gave him this year that panned out. One player in the NFL that you really liked.
You know what? I think that he had a chance between Lamar and Josh Allen. You know what I mean? And I told him to go with Lamar, and he did. And so that panned out really good.
Yeah, I did.
But I told him I felt Chase was going to have a great one. That was the big one. Was the receiver.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, should take Chase or Jefferson. And I said, how do you get shots at both these guys? You know what
exactly.
I
want to talk to your son's league mates.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I feel like the way it fell, he had like a top of the draft pick and bottom of the draft pick, and it worked out with him. So he did good.
That's awesome.
Triple crown for Jamar Chase. Pretty good season. You mentioned, Shaun, when you played in the Super Bowl, obviously the lead up to the game is so completely different. Did you find that, after kickoff, it just felt like a normal game, or did it feel immensely different?
I feel like the timeouts were a lot longer.
Okay.
Commercial breaks were a lot longer. So I felt like, you play the game and there's like a little bit of this fatigue that you feel like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit tired. They're feeling a little bit tired. I'm going to will myself. This next run's going to really wear them out. And you felt like every play was after a timeout. You're like, wow, okay, this is a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like, they're always fresh. We're always fresh, Okay. So, but I kind of like that because it gave us the ability to run the ball. We didn't. We threw the ball a lot in our game, but no hard feelings.
I have a question for you here about Seattle currently, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because both Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet were really impressive this year when they got a shot. And it was sort of weird. Both guys feel like they deserve to be a workhorse, true three-down running back the way you were in the NFL, and yet they can't seem to sort of decide on a guy. And I know there's been health issues with both guys, and so they've sort of but I'm just curious your thoughts on sort of the running back situation in Seattle, because we're trying to make sense of it, because it's like either one of those guys is a superstar if they get the work, but it hasn't been consistent for either of them in Seattle.
I remember, of course I came with Ricky Waters, who's like icon, you know what I mean? Like 10K and all these 70-something touchdowns, and so they're like, Ricky's the guy, you're his backup. And I was like, yes, sir, Mike Holmgren.
Right, of course.
Great offensive guru, So I think sometimes when you just set that what that is, it allows the guy that's going to be the guy, because you're right, they're both guys just like me and Ricky. The more we're on the field, the better we're going to perform. And so I feel like they've made Kenneth the guy and Schaub the backup, and then Kenneth goes down and they flip, and then the Schaub, it's a weird situation, but I agree with you. You have to pick one. I remember the 49ers had that same issue with Joe Montana and Steve Young. They have to pick one, because if you don't, make it very clear this is the guy and the other guy's the backup, it actually damages the whole team and also the rhythm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's just a weird situation, because Charbonnet's
Charbonnet
deserves a start.
He's
what I mean?
Good player,
No disrespect to Walker, who's also great, but
How do you think that trade-off works in terms of, in a committee being fresher and having less carries and potentially having more energy on those carries versus being in the rhythm of getting 28, 30 carries as you did? Like if you were in the NFL today, I mean, I assume you would want the kind of workhorse role and to have as many carries as possible. But do you agree with how teams are doing that with the trade-off?
I don't. I feel like it's, I love my EA Sports. I feel like it's an EA Sports mentality. Like, you need a guy fresher. I'm like, well, who said that that's going to make the guy better or the team better?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you get a guy that's been grinding. He's running the ball 1 time, 2, 3, 4 carries in a row. He's breathing a little bit heavy. The line's breathing a little bit heavy. And they're like, hey, y'all, let's finish this drive. Next thing you know, there's boom, 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 and it's touchdowns. And everybody, they're all coming to the sideline exhausted and victorious. There's something in the mentals that's really, really good when that happens, where you swap a guy out and, it's just, it doesn't feel the same as a guy taking a drive and then smashing it down somebody's throat the whole drive.
Just on that, I always find it funny when after a guy breaks a 50-yard run and then gets tackled at like the 3 and then gets taken out and then someone else runs it in at the goal line. When you're always in that situation, did you always get that extra kind of burst of energy because you're so close to getting into the end zone to get the next carry?
Oh, no, we ain't getting pulled over.
Exactly.
There's a difference in guys too right there. Like, I do feel like that's a part of where you got to finish the run, but also there was just something different. You felt like you would finish the drive.
Yeah.
So not only would you stay in the game, the coaches felt like they wanted to let you finish it.
Yep.
Where, I think that once again, people play the physical side of it, but they don't really lock into the mental side of it, where your guy breaks a run and mentally he's like, man, okay, finish this drive. Yep. They're going to score with a touchdown. You bring another guy in and maybe you throw the ball or maybe you try. It's still off of gimmicks and schemes where sometimes it's still football. Man up. Oh, y'all knock this thing in.
Yeah. And reward the guy. Reward the guy for getting you down there. Some of that goes to, though, play calling, though, so I want to bring that up here. Interesting dynamic for you specifically, Shaun, because Ryan Grubb was the offense coordinator of your Seahawks this past year. He's let go, but now he's going to Alabama and reuniting with Kalen. I have a son who's a sophomore at Alabama, so roll tide.
Roll tide.
So I'm just curious of your thoughts about Ryan Grubb going to your alma mater here and reuniting with Kalen. What didn't work in Seattle? Do you think it's going to work in Alabama? Obviously, they had so much success at the University of Washington.
Well, he was at UW and was successful, then went to the pros. And I think sometimes the program is a little bit different. You've got different mentality, different way you're going to coach it, and a different spacing, where it's just different enough to know that you got to put a little stuff, get your timing together. So I don't know if he even got enough time to really put his system in a pro set, but him and Kalen are great friends. They were great friends, first of all, and then they were coaching together, and now they're going to come down to Alabama. I'm excited for what the offense is going to look like at Tuscaloosa for many years to come.
Yeah, okay. Me too. I told my kid, he gets there, and Saban retires. I'm like, what happened?
Yeah,
Connor?
What'd you do to Rick?
What are you doing?
Was you in that meeting with all those players?
Yeah, I know. Like, and then, anyway, we've gotten, my wife and I, because of our son, we've gotten really into Alabama football this past year. And, just every weekend, Jalen, what are you?
Yeah.
I love Jalen Milroe, but then, 2 or 3 times a game, he would do something that would drive me absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. Well, that's because you've already felt the Bama flavor, which is we got to be the most perfect team every single time. Every single play has to be a touchdown. Jalen's going to be he's going to be a really good pro player. He's going to get in the right system. He's going to do well because he's got all the things that you need to be great. And so he's going to be good. But when every play has to be perfect, he needs to think like Jalen. He needs to throw like Tua. He needs to command the whole game like AJ. You're like, wait a minute, did we just make him Saban's perfect quarterback? There's no such thing.
There was a tremendous amount of pressure on him, and it's and he would make a couple of mistakes that would drive me nuts. But on the other hand, he didn't give up 40 to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Bama's defense has to get better. Anyway, we don't need to turn this into a
college football.
But do you get back to the university? Are you still involved with the university?
I am, yeah. I try to go back to at least one game, one home game every year, and then either the SEC championship or the bowl game. And it's been fun. These years with Coach Saban were great. Coach DeBoer was great to me this year. They've always opened up the door since I've retired to come in anytime. And the Bama factory is real,
Yep, indeed. What do you think happens on Sunday? Who do you think wins? How do you think the game unfolds?
I'm thinking that, it's hard to ever bet against Patrick Mahomes, but I've kind of always liked to see the NFC kind of do things well. And so I'm still this old school enough that if you run the ball and stop the run, that the Eagles have a shot, especially if, kind of like that last drive of halftime in the first drive of the game, if they could swing that and get up. And then because the difference between them is if they run the ball in the fourth quarter, they literally do chew up the whole clock. Yep. Where, most teams, they try to run it just to let the clock run out. Eagles score touchdowns in their 4-minute offense. So they got a shot.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Shaun, you're here today with Stand Together. Can you tell us about your work there?
Man, Stand Together, I've been with them, 5, 6, we're on 7 years now. And some of the greatest business leaders and social entrepreneurs in the country, they put together their time, their talents, their treasures to tackle some of the country's biggest issues. I loved what they were doing. Everybody knows about me with Cafe Momentum and the juvenile restaurant ran by juvenile justice kids, and the things that we're doing. But Stand Together has been even more. And so I've been grabbing players across the league, some of the legends, some of the current players, and we've been and introducing them to some of the causes that we're tackling, from from childcare to community services to, just to anything that could help communities get better. And it's just marvelous. The things that Stand Together is doing, hopefully we'll continue to grow. We'll bring more players in. Miles Kilbrew has been with us, and Rashad White and DeMar Hamlin. And so just some of the great young players, and Jonathan Allen with the Commanders.
Sure.
So we're pulling them in to say, hey, like, I want you to leave a legacy on the field, and I also want you to leave a legacy when you're done playing that says, man, we will impact communities at a high level, and it's happening.
Yep. Well, that's awesome. Standtogether.org for more information if you want to see it. Shaun Alexander, fantasy football legend, NFL legend, Seahawks Ring of Honor, Madden cover guy, Super Bowl participant. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. Continued success to you.
No doubt, brother. Hey, shout out Applebee's. That looks good, man. Eating good in the neighborhood.
There you go. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.